So we're going to get started. Just to start off, some quick introductions from our side. We do have Richard Monk on the call. If you guys have joined previous webinars, you're pretty familiar with him at this point. He's a data success manager here at Dataedo. We also have Piotr Kononov in the call as well today. He is our CEO and founder.
Hello, everyone.
From here, we'll jump into things. Today, we're going to be going over putting governance inside of your data governance catalog. Most of you guys are familiar with Dataedo, but if this is your first time interacting with us, we are a lightweight data governance / data cataloging solution. We heavily focus on being flexible, customizable, and easy to implement inside of an organization. Some of our key functionalities is going to be lineage, data quality, into also classifications, which we'll touch on today. So the agenda is Richard will start off with, again, putting data governance into your data governance solution. And then at the end, we'll also have Piotr touch into some data quality and some insights into the future roadmap for the end of this year. But with that, I'll pass it over to you, Richard, and feel free to get started.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And welcome everyone to Dataedo Basics again today. As Patrick mentioned, this is our fourth session where we're going to be talking about data governance and how it works with your Dataedo data catalog. The whole idea here is that you have your data catalog where you document your data assets, your data systems, focused on documentation. We do lineage, those sorts of things. And then your data governance initiatives are going to focus on processes and, policies, standards, the management of the data. And what we want to do is bring them together by utilizing the functionality that exists in Dataedo to support these governance activities. And that's where we get this data governance catalog, data cataloged that is used for governance. Now, I put together this list of 14, I believe, elements of data governance. We're not going to talk about, what these mean. That's a different class, honestly, to talk about data governance itself. And you probably know what these are anyway. But as a roadmap, kind of where we're going to go with this, these first two up here that have the check mark on them, the lineage, metadata management, ownership, we've talked about these things in the past. So I'm gonna hit them briefly just to bring them into the discussion, but not a lot of time spent on those. These here with the green triangles, that's where I'm going to spend my time talking about how Dataedo supports these elements of data governance. These over here with the light bulbs, these are current and future development topics that we will get to towards the end of this session. That's why Piotr is here to talk about the data quality management element. And these last five with the X mark on them, those are things that really fall outside of what we can do with Dataedo, things like ethics and strategy, security management. We can't do much with those topics, by using the data catalog. So we're gonna not talk about those, but these green ones are where we're going to start for the most part. So as I mentioned, we have talked about metadata management and lineage in the past. So just briefly, this is the core functionality of Dataedo, of course, to document the data systems. The idea, we can't manage it if we don't know what it is, and we can't manage it if we don't know where it is. The core functionality, what do we have? What does it mean? Where is it? What are the interactions? All of those things about, all that documentation about your data system, that's the core functionality of your data catalog, and Dataedo addresses these at that basic level. So very important topics. But I'm not going to go into them because we've done that in the past. We've already mentioned that is the reason we have documentation. Likewise, ownership. there are lots of roles that pertain to the data and your data systems. So owners, stewards, custodians, coordinators, database administrators, subject matter experts. There's all of these people who have some sort of responsibility to data management based on their roles. And we can leverage Dataedo to document who these people are. We can say who the owners of data assets or data systems or data sources are. We can say who the subject matter experts are, and so on. We use custom fields in Dataedo to document these things for two purposes. One is users of the data and users of the data catalog know who is responsible, and in the case of a subject matter expert, who to contact if they need more information. On the other side of the coin, these people who have responsibility, we can leverage data domains, as we've mentioned before, and set those up so that they correspond with these areas of responsibility. So the people who are responsible, for example, a data steward or a data custodian, they can find the data area that corresponds to their responsibility, and all of those objects that they're responsible for managing are linked to it. Gives them quick and easy access, targeted access to know, what they're responsible for and how they're doing with their management activities. So this idea of assigning roles to assets is very important. Next, risk management and compliance. This is the big one that everyone thinks of when they think about data governance, of course, and that is this idea of regulated data, personal data, private data, sensitive data, and again, if you don't know where it is, you can't manage it. If you don't know what it is, you can't manage it. So Dataedo addresses this with the data discovery and classification feature. And the way that works, you probably know, Dataedo will scan the columns in your data sources and return lists of suggested columns that Dataedo believes contain regulated data. And then an editor reviews that list to accept or reject those suggestions. If they're accepted, then the suggestions are saved to these columns as attributes that say this column contains sensitive data of the type address. And you can do this for various different regulations. And this allows you to know always what data is, or what data columns contain sensitive data. Coming at it from the other side, a person, for example, from the data governance office can make a query and say, where in our data systems do we have sensitive data? This example here, we're looking at addresses, and we can see that sensitive address data exists in these tables, specifically in these columns, and the tables exist in these databases. It allows them to almost instantly know what data assets and what columns specifically they should be watching to make sure that the data is managed correctly. And again, those people on the IT side, they can use that list to verify that they are managing the data correctly. They have the proper life cycle and controls, access controls around these data assets. So it allows people to know what needs to be managed and verify that it is being managed appropriately. We can rely on custom fields to add additional attributes about these data assets. So in this example right here, I've created a custom field called compliance level and populated the drop-down list with various levels of compliance that an editor then applies to these assets. And so we know in this example, this table is 80% compliant. We're going to talk more about compliance in just a second. There are other custom fields, obviously, that are possibilities here. And it's your job as editors, as designers of your catalog, to work with your data governance office personnel to define what custom field attributes you need to document, create those custom fields and begin populating them so that this information is available to the people who are doing data governance. We can rely on the business glossary. Dataedo business glossary ships with these entry types of rules and policies where you can document those things that pertain specifically to the governance. For example, here we have a policy defining data classification and handling. It's all right there. It's in one place. It's accessible. It's standardized. All of those ideas about a single source of truth. This is it relating to these rules and policies that are pertinent to the data governance activities. I mentioned data lifecycle management a bit ago. Just more specifically here, someone is going to be responsible for that data lifecycle. It has to be managed. So we define using custom field roles who those people are. We can also add other custom fields like a retention rule so that the people who are responsible for implementing and maintaining that lifecycle, they know what the rules are and they know how to do it so they can verify that they are doing it correctly. Again, the glossary, we can utilize that to get more information. In this example here, I created a custom glossary entry type of article. And to that, I started adding SOPs. So here we have the general data governance SOP with all of the information about that. And again, this idea of making it available in a single place, having it standardized, uniform, all of those ideas of having this single source of truth about these specific topics about data governance. And again, I mentioned we're going to come back to the compliance level. What I've done here, we have the custom field of compliance level where we actually assign those levels to assets. Here I've defined what a compliance level is. So I created this entry where we define the compliance level. We say what the possible levels are. We talk about, who assigns these values and so on. So we used here the custom fields in conjunction with the glossary to create that depth of knowledge that's necessary to properly manage these things. Change management. You're probably all familiar with the schema change tracking functionality in Dataedo. What that does, of course, is every time an editor or every time the metadata is refreshed manually by an editor or automatically using the scheduler, we keep a history of what changed, or if nothing changed, we document that as well. So as your data sources may change, objects may be added or updated or dropped. All of that information is saved in the schema change tracking module. And what we're adding to that is this notification capability. So notification widgets on the front page of Portal are coming in the release that's coming this week, I believe. And that's what we're actually looking at right here. This is that widget where we can see for each data source a summary of what happened over time. And this gives us that context to be able to understand what's happening in the sources so that the sources can be managed. Notification of changes, this is planned next release, I believe. This is a delivery by email of things like a daily digest or a weekly digest of what has happened with these schema changes, as well as a bunch of other things. So we have passive delivery of this information and active delivery of this information, again, so it supports governance activities. History of changes here. This is the functionality in Dataedo where we track changes to the values that are actually stored in the repository. For example, if someone were to change that compliance level from 80% to 40%, we would have that documented, who made the change and when it happened. And if it was later changed back to 60%, we would know that change, who made the change, and when it happened again. So we have that history of what's going on. And I'm gonna come back to that in just a minute with another example. This last one here, a data governance domain. My idea here is that you can create a data domain that is for data governance, and within that, you link your SOPs, roles and responsibility articles, best practices, training resources, onboarding instructions and resources, these sorts of things that assist and support data governance. Again, bring it all into one place, make it accessible to the appropriate people, single source of truth that's available there, and standardized. And again, if things change, we have that history of changes where over time we see that documentation and we have a good history for compliance purposes, so we know exactly what's happening. Now, the people who would have access to that information, of course, are going to be your Data Stewardship Council, this group of people who come from various departments or various areas of your organization for the purpose of data governance, of managing data and make sure that it's created, used, interpreted, managed properly, all of those governance activities. And again, the purpose of the catalog is to make this easily accessible to the people on the council. All this information they need to do their jobs, make it easily accessible. Specifically, we have the classification module that we mentioned earlier, where these people can very quickly find that list of all of the regulated data by whatever regulation they choose, or generally speaking, they know where it is and they can do their job to verify that it is being managed correctly. Another option here is badges. That is an upcoming functionality that I believe is 24.4. And with this, we're able to basically tag data assets, those that are critical data, for example, and allow the council to prioritize their efforts or focus their efforts on the critical data to make sure that it is managed appropriately. And finally, the workflow feature supports within Dataedo the work of reviewing and approving information as it comes into the catalog. So for example, there we go. For example, this is it's actually a glossary term that I'm looking at here, but we see how it moved through the workflow, and we see who performed activities, who approved something and moved it on, and when that happened. So we have that history of this object being reviewed and approved within the catalog. Again, important information for governance. Data analytics and reporting, we've talked about this in the past, so just briefly here. The report catalog, of course, brings together this list of data sets and reports that exist in your organization, and we can utilize all of these other things that we've been talking about, custom fields to say who is responsible, who is the owner, the business glossary, where we define the concepts that are being reported and link them to the reports so that those people who are using the reports can interpret the information correctly. Those people who are creating reporting verify that they are doing it correctly according to the definitions of the concepts, managing that standardization. Data dictionary, we link the concepts to those dictionary entries, again, so that we get that full understanding. I called it a matrix of understanding before. It's understanding what is being reported, where it comes from, where it's reported, and verifying that it is used appropriately. Again, important for your management activities, because if something is used incorrectly, then and interpreted incorrectly, then your efforts with management are obviously less effective. Reference data and lookup lists. This goes back to the idea of standardization, where we not only know what is supposed to be in these columns, we know what actually is in these columns. So for example, if we had, in addition to United States, we also had USA and United States of America, the person who is doing reporting or analysis, they would know that these other values exist in the source and they need to address them in the reporting to, make a more robust reporting effort there. Oops. So data standardization, specifically the dictionary, the glossary, and reference data allows us to do that. In this case, I'm not talking about the reporting, but I'm talking about master data management, where the master data also needs to be standardized. We need to know where it is, what it means, where it's used, all that context around it to make sure that it is managed correctly. I mentioned badges earlier, where we can basically tag assets as master data, critical data, certified data, and others to allow people to get the context of understanding and verify that it is being managed and used correctly. And finally, data quality management. Just briefly here, Dataedo has been working towards data quality management for some time. You can see here we've had data profiling since version 10, and that's not as bad as it sounds. The jump from version 10 to version 24 is not 14 steps, it's 2. So it's 2 years here, but we have had data profiling for a while, and in the version that's coming out currently, data quality insights coming up in the next version, native data quality rules, and in early 2025, custom data quality rules. So I'm not going to talk more about these. I am actually going to hand off to Piotr at this point and ask him to give us kind of an overview of what that's going to look like. So.
Okay, I'm sharing. Let me know if you can see.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's the screen I wanted to share. Okay, so I wanted to give you a sneak peek into the upcoming data quality module, which will be released late this year. Okay, so what you see over here is a data quality dashboard where we summarize the quality collected from runs of all the data quality rules defined in the catalog. So over here you can see the general score. It's broken down by so-called quality dimensions. So each rule has assigned special, one dimension. So for instance, validity is 77%. Over here we can see the trend as it goes over time. It will include also a number of charts that show how many rules you had over time, how many of those rules passed or failed. Yeah, so it will include like the overview of how your data quality project and how your quality of your actual data is going, how is it trending. Here you can see broken down by different other dimensions. So for instance, by data owner, you can see how many rules they have defined, what's the score of their data they own. Here by the data source. Also by severity, will include something like severity. Not all the rules are equal. Some are critical, some are not so important. The severity will also impact how often you would like to run those rules, because I can imagine running the low severity rules could be once a week, once a month, and critical even once an hour. Where here you see the repeated the chart repeated in a tabular format. You'll be able to enter any specific rules. So over here we have a column and a particular rule, and you can see what was the trend, how many rows were tested, and how many failed. Right, I believe another. I don't have a screen for that right now, but another really interesting functionality will be the ability to save the exact rows. It has to be enabled, obviously, because you have to make sure which exact columns, or even if you like the data at all to be saved in the repository and visible in the portal. But I believe, for many data, if you save ID or maybe ID plus link to your system, to CRM or whatever other system, it would be very, very useful. But you have to consciously, for every single rule, click yes, please save the data, and then data custodian can work with this dashboard to actually fix the data issues. A quick overview of the rules. We'll ship over 100 of built-in rules. Some of them will be generic, like over here. So, for instance, a column should be not null or not empty. You can write your custom like or regex statement. You can list allowed or forbidden values or provide a value range. For instance, for age, it could be between 0 and 100. And so on. There's a lot of rules that we will be shipping with our first release this year, and we'll be adding a lot more next year and probably in the upcoming years as well. We'll also be adding more domain based rules, so things like Canadian business number or SSN, and also a bit more generic, right, like testing valid URL or web domain name. Okay. There will be two types of rules. Users will be able to create their own rules. So there are two types of rules: regex, where if you know the syntax, you don't actually have to know the syntax. You can ask ChatGPT. It's basically testing for string patterns. Or SQL is a bit more advanced. You can write your your own rule, a rule that could be reusable, or a rule that works specifically on a particular tables. Okay, and I would also like to show you what we are releasing this probably next week. This is data quality insights. Let me open that. So the module I showed you was the was the functionality that is based on rules that users define, and the rules either pass or fail. And in next week, if you upgrade, or if you're trialing, or if you plan to trial, then you can download the version next week, and that will include. Okay, let me share another screen. So you can also see that we are planning to change the navigation if you're familiar with the current version of Dataedo. So let's enter our new dashboards functionality. And one of the dashboards is data quality insights over here. And it uses the data from the profiling. If you have already profiled your data, then you can simply enter this dashboard. If you're not, then you can use desktop to run profiling for one of your data sources, and then save the results in the repository. So, okay, first tab shows you the tables and columns that are empty. Over here, here are some pie charts. Below you can see columns that are empty in non-empty tables, and tables that are empty, and columns that consist just one value. Here is potentially missing data for integer and date columns, which is between min and max. There are some gaps. It doesn't have to be an issue, but it's something that you might want to look into. Here are some issues with data models. So, for instance, tables without a primary key or unique key, or inconsistent data types for foreign keys. You can define foreign keys manually in the Dataedo, so it's something extra that your database engine would not find. And tables that were not updated for a long, queried actually, not for a long time. In this version, we also start tracking the usage of data automatically from the system. So that's here are some large tables, over 1 million rows. Potentially for deletion. Okay, so all right, so that's what I wanted to show regarding data quality.
Perfect. I know we have some questions in the chat that we can get into now, and if there is any other questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll be able to answer them live. So the first one would be from Graham. He's asking, can the change management also identify those changes which have been approved versus the ones that have not been approved or unapproved?
No, what that change management is about things that have been reported and things that are, have been documented. They've already happened in your data sources. So if you have things that you're planning to do, you're planning to drop a table, for example, that hasn't come into the source yet. So we can't document that until it actually happens. Now, if you have something that's in the pipeline where you have a change has happened in dev, but it hasn't hit stage in project, of course, you can see the difference between those, compare basically the differences between them and see that it's happening that way. But as far as proposing changes and going through a review and approval process on changes to your sources, no, we can't do that.
Appreciate that, Richard. The next one would be from Pushbach. He's asking, can we have custom badges, for example, gold, silver, and bronze?
Yeah, my understanding is that we will be able to create custom badges. Not sure if that's on the very next version or if that's upcoming. Piotr?
Yeah, if you mean badges for assets, so to add badge to a table or column, yeah, that's something we're planning to release with in the next release this year. Late this year with data quality. Yes, you will be able to create your custom badges. By default, we will be shipping 3 badges. That would be master data, critical data element, and certified assets. So you could use that for certifying assets.
Perfect.
The next one would be from Krista asking, Richard, can lookup values be exported to the HTML type of export?
I don't believe that they are included in HTML export. I think you can download them, like to Excel directly. I think there's a download button on that screen. So you can download them, you can get them to work with, but they're not included in like the HTML export or the PDF export.
Perfect. We do have another one from Pushback, just kind of a side question there. For profiling and data quality, can we optionally override the default profile storage for the data itself? He's saying you'd like to share the profiling for example top grounded values to be visible for everyone to understand the data.
I'm going to refer that to Piotr. I think the capability isn't there right now, but Piotr.
Okay. The second part, our data profiling includes the top values, right? It's a feature that we already have. So if you'd like to see most popular top 10 or top 100 popular columns, it works by default.
But that is only for editors in desktop, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're planning to migrate it to web. But yeah, but you're not able to customize the profiling model right now.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Piotr. The next one would be from Jiva asking how to classify master data and reference data for any table objects. So I'm assuming asking basically how to create that inside of Dataedo currently.
Yeah, so that'll be done with the badges. I don't have any visibility into how that actually works yet, so I can't comment on that one.
Yeah, I can provide more in-depth answers. So for reference data, you can use our reference data functionality lookups. It's currently available for editing in desktop only. you open the table, click on the column, and create a lookup or link to existing lookup. And for the future master data tagging, you just open the object, and there's an icon, and you just choose which batch you'd like to add and submit.
Perfect. And Jiva, if you need additional information, again, feel free to contact me offline. Be happy to sort that out for you. The next one would be on the scheduler, mixed in with some classifications, asking, can running data classifications be in scheduler to incorporate any new fields which might be added?
Good question. Right now, the scheduler addresses profiling and metadata imports. This is going to be enhanced in a future, is that 25.1, I believe, where you will be able to basically have what comes down in effect to a single job that you define to deal with all of these things like profiling and classification, metadata import, lots of different aspects, and customizable. So you choose which ones you want to include. A lot of flexibility there will be built in. Right now, no. Classification is run manually at this point.
And clarification on 25.1, that will be in 2025 in Q1, just so we get those timelines straight for you.
Yeah, but we are not sure if that feature, because we're rebuilding the import, as Richard mentioned, completely. We're not sure if that will be 25.1 or 2.
Okay.
Which 2 is also 2 is planned for early Q2.
Perfect. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Happy to go over those live. Richard also just pulled up contacts. So for any new customers looking at Dataedo, I will be your best contact. Happy to talk over this in a meeting. Feel free to reach out to me over email. For training or existing customers, feel free to reach out to Richard. He will be your main contact on that side. For anything of current customers around licensing or anything of that nature, Jonathan DeMorio, who's account manager here at Dataedo, will be able to assist. And then we do also have our support team in general emails listed there for you guys as well.
And I'll just thank everyone for making the effort to be here today. For some people, particularly US, this is a little bit early. For some others like Jiva, I'm sorry, this is really late at night for you. So thanks for making the effort to be here. And comment, of course, that the recording of this video will be available on the website along with all of the other sessions. Feel free to share those with your colleagues as you need to. And finally, the deck that I used today, along with all of the others, are available for download here at the meeting also. So you can grab all of those. And I specifically left these as PowerPoint rather than PDF, so that if you need to use these as you are talking with your colleagues or doing training or anything like that, you can use these. You can edit them and put in your own examples, things like that as needed. So feel free to use those however you want. That's why I left them as PowerPoint.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate everyone joining in. I don't see any new questions coming up. So I appreciate everyone joining in, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.